So today I would like to share my thoughts on three of my favorite topics. First, I'll talk about Black Swan thinking. If you ask me out of those three, this is my most favorite topic. As there was an author by the name Nassim Taleb, and he wrote a book called The Black Swan. And his idea was that we come across unprecedented events. They are typically outliers, but they have a huge impact when it happens. For example, in technology, he mentions transistor, laser, and computer as the Black Swan technologies. Even when they are introduced, they are not appreciated at the time they are introduced. So what we think that when it comes to innovation, there is a role for Black Swan innovation, disruptive innovation. The idea being that if we get high risk, high reward research, and one of them turns out to be the next transistor, that will be transformative. So to promote that, what we have been having, for example, in my institute, ICTAS, Institute for Critical Technology and Applied Science at Virginia Tech, we had something called Cafe X, Coffee Shop for the Unknown. So there we will get the top-notch professors in any field, and we would ask him, what would make you irrelevant in 5 years that no graduate students want to work with you? In my Bell Laboratory days, we used to ask the question, what will make you unemployable in 5 years? Because the technology moves at high Schumpeterian rate, very high rate, exponentially. So the chances that what you are working on today will be obsolete in a few years is pretty high. So doing this kind of exercise, where we used to get people from different disciplines, philosophers, humanists, scientists, engineers, and as I said, we'll get the top-notch professor in the field and we'll ask him that question, what will make you irrelevant in 5 years that no graduate students want to work with you? So that kind of thinking, people come up with different ideas. Hey, I think what you're working in the wireless technology, that is going to be obsolete and we need to work in this area. So many ideas pop up. Out of those ideas, we select a few. And then we fund that area, fund that particular topic. And maybe out of 10 such topics, maybe one of them qualifies for next investment. So our hope is that we can become, through this kind of exercise, a breeding ground for the next Black Swan, a breeding ground for the next transistor, a breeding ground for the next computer, or a breeding ground for the next GPS. So it is that kind of exercise where you ask that question to the top person and bring people from different fields asking a question can bring about innovative, disruptive Black Swan innovation. So that's what we really want to do even at VT India. One of the objectives is, for example, for all our scientists, I have asked them to think of U square R, unencumbered, untargeted research. And the idea there is essentially the same. Think of high risk, high reward ideas. Maybe 1 or 2 out of 10 will be proven as far as their feasibility is concerned, and then we can invest in them, and that can be the next transformative technology. So that's the first of my 3 favorite topics. The second one, design thinking. This is, for me, that's not just a word that people use, design thinking. For me, it is our basic principle of the way we do research. For example, when we design a product, as engineers, we are sitting in our cubby holes, and sometimes we don't think of what is the impact of that on the society. What are the unintended consequences of what we develop as a product, a process, whatever it is. So what we really need to do is right upstream, I call it upstream. When we are designing the product, we should be looking at the humanistic side of that. What are the societal and ethical implications of this product that we are developing? What are the societal and ethical considerations of this process that we are developing? So not only there, we sort of keep following, and we what I call is midstream modulation. Midstream modulation means even during half life of the design, you look at what we have done so far, where we are headed, and ask the same question. What are the societal and ethical implications? What is its impact on the society at large? What are the unintended consequences of this? So design thinking in this aspect also includes our impact on society, especially for engineers, and that actually applies even to scientists and even humanists and professors in English or economics. Their theory can have as much impact on society as an engineering project. So design thinking, in my mind, according to me, it involves looking at the societal and ethical aspects of everything that we design. The other piece that we include in design thinking, at least in my team, we look at, are we designing for resilience? Because these days, with everything that's happening, whether it is the climate change or it is again the large impact but low frequency events like a volcano, like a pandemic, are we designing our products that they can resist that? They can be resilient on that. Do we look at the life cycle product? What is the carbon footprint of the product that we're designing? What is the recycling cost of that? So all of this is captured in design thinking, where we are looking at the humanistic side, societal impact. We constantly look at the design even during the process. And then we say, if we need to make changes, technology has changed, the society has changed, we need to make those changes. And finally, as I said, we need to look at design for sustainability, design for resilience. These are all components of design thinking. So having design thinking among our engineers and scientists and the humanists, it means right upstream, right in the first stages, whether I'm writing an essay, I'm coming up with a new economic theory, or I'm coming up with a new software algorithm, we need to look at what is the downstream impact of that. And during the midstream, we would like to make modifications if necessary and make sure that we have looked at the life cycle impact of our design process, theory, essay, economic theory, and so on. So those are a few words about my second topic. And now the third topic, which is the favorite these days, people want to know what's the role of data science and what's the role of AI in different economic sectors. As you know, Chat GPT, this is now considered to be the next revolution, disruptive technology. And I can see that in our students when they write essays, when they are writing um, even scientific answer to scientific questions, they make use of the Chat GPT. But let me just share a few words about data science. My favorite saying is that big research equal to team science. Gone are the days when one person sitting away somewhere can make a very transformative an impact. But however, we want to bring people from different disciplines together. In the same line, on the same spirit, we can think of data science. Big data is the knowledge. The more the data I have, the better I am able to come up with the right decision. But there is one important piece of information that we need to keep in mind. It is not only how much data we have, we also have to figure it out what data not to use, because there can be a lot of fake data, and whatever you put in your model, if the data is faulty, your model is going to be faulty. So we have to be very careful about the big data or the data science. Data science has not only to deal with just collecting big data and trying to develop models out of this, we have to be equally very good at what not to use. And finally, again, in the data science, where I differ from a number of our other folks, sometimes the data will tell us these are the outliers. We call them dogs. These are the dogs. So typically people would like to try a correlation through the data, and if there are a few outliers, we ignore them. But sometimes It is the outliers, as I mentioned earlier in the Black Swan technology. It is the outliers that can give us insight into something brand new. Okay? So we should be looking at data science from that angle. It's a source of knowledge. It's a lot of data that we can use to come up with the right correlations. On the other hand, we have to be very careful in figuring it out what data to use and what not to use. AI. Well, there are a lot of discussion going on the AI. Is it going to replace human beings? Is it a disruptive technology, or we should be putting some mechanisms in place so that we don't get into the harmful effects of AI? All those are correct. We are in the early stages of AI. We really haven't explored the full impact, what potential it has and what it can do. And AI depends on the data sciences again. So I think with the AI, my message to all our students would be when they look at AI, we should be looking at it's in the early stages, typical what I talked about design thinking or Black Swan technologies. We should also be looking at AI. How can it help us to bring about disruptive innovation? As you know, sometimes from the data, there are some correlations which are not visible to us. So AI, for example, looking at the maps or the images from the retina of the eye, they were able to connect it to the heart disease. So ordinary human beings, we won't think of that. So that's where the artificial intelligence can get some information from the data that we may not be able to get, and that's its power. But along with power comes the caution. Let's not use it for purposes which are nefarious. So those are some of my thoughts on these three topics, and I hope our students or the listeners can think about them, deliberate them, and start thinking about how we can go about these technologies, whether we want to create the next disruptive innovation or a black swan innovation. How does design thinking play a role into that? How do we look at the life impact? And finally, how can we use of a new resource, data science or AI, to get these things done? Thank you very much. Whosoever is listening, our students or anybody else, have a wonderful career.